Well, hey, hello everybody, and welcome to Off the Cuff, episode 7, Rocked on Detroit Lions. We're getting into the draft recap show, and it's a little bit of a late breaking edition. Wasn't quite sure that we were going to be able to pull this off today, and we're going to certainly try. As I stated a couple shows ago, we've had nothing but issues with the internet out here, and we've had the internet company out the last 2 days and they're just having trouble. So if we drop, if it gets sketchy, I apologize, but we will redo the show again. But anyway, welcome in. And once you guys get in, go ahead and leave me a comment. Let me know you're in, and we'll get to y'all. Oh, Gary's already in. Hey, Gary, how's it going? It's over. There's no news until OFA and preseason. Let it go. All right, Gary. Yeah, I doubt we're gonna let it go, buddy. So here we are. The draft's over. You're right, Gary, but we haven't done our recap yet. We've put out our blog articles at rockedonpodcastnetwork.com, and you can view all the articles that we're putting out. We put out some great content. And the interesting thing is, back in March when I wrote these articles, I actually called the majority of the Lions picks right where they were going to take them. And it's interesting. I don't know anything more than anybody else, but we got it right. So we're going to jump right in. First pick, number 12, Jahmyr Gibbs. We're taking it at pick number 12. First Lions pick, Jahmyr Gibbs. Lions traded back number 6 to the Arizona Cardinals. And what's interesting there is I thought that the Houston Texans were going to be the best trade partner for the Lions to move back to 12. Houston opted to trade up with the Cardinals early to take the number 3 pick, and the Lions acquired number 12 through the Cardinals. So they selected Jahmyr Gibbs. And as I stated in the off-the-cuff truck edition, I expected that the Lions were going to take an offensive threat with the first pick in the draft. I was hopeful that if they stayed at 6, they were going to take Devon Witherspoon. He was taken at number 5. Hence, I think the reason why the Lions decided to trade back here. They saw better value with other players. They were never going to touch Jalen Carter with a 10-foot pole. And for whatever reason, they didn't have Tyree Wilson as high as people expected. So they ended up moving back to 12. And like I said in the previous show, I think it was episode 4 or 5, that they would take Bijan Robinson. But if the Lions were surprised and he was taken before the Lions had a chance, that they would take Jahmyr Gibbs. And there's a few reasons why. One, I do think that Jameson Williams' fallout with his gambling issue caused some of this. I think the Lions wanted another credible and viable threat on the field in his absence, somebody with speed, somebody that could be used on the outside of the of the edge there and play in the slot. So he's a definite threat. Jahmyr Gibbs, he can handle it from the backfield forward. He can catch balls out of the backfield. He can line up in the slot, and he can line up out wide. And he's just a burner. I mean, this guy stays tight into his fit, stays tight into his track. He's everywhere he needs to be when he's on the field, when he has the ball in his hands. I did expect the Lions to be more players at pick 18 if they needed to trade back, but they did it a little early, and they ended up with another Bama boy to add to this Lions roster. And, when Jameson Williams gets back, the Lions have a very dangerous duo here. 2 guys with speed, 2 guys with hands, 2 guys that, can absolutely scorch a defense. I mean, what's a defense to do? And we'll explain a little bit more about what are the Packers going to do because of what they did later on in the draft. Don't forget to check out the YouTube Rocked On Podcast Network. You will find all the episodes that I'm talking about on the YouTube channel. You also check out the website, rockedonpodcastnetwork.com. The blog site's up right now. Check out some of the articles. I think you'll be interested to read what we were putting up back in March. So what is Jahmyr Gibbs going to be to this offense? Just who is he? We identified a few points. One, he's a big-time home run threat. This guy is scary coming out of the backfield, but whether he is utilized as a running back or a slot receiver or a wide receiver, this guy gets the ball in his hands and he's dancing to the end zone. At least that's what he thinks. And that's where he's headed. So We expect him to turn small gains into big advantages, and he's going to capitalize on it. He's also a matchup nightmare for all of the reasons that I just stated. Whether he is out wide in the slot or in the backfield, you've got 4 or 5 different positions that need to account for him on the defense. According to some stats from PFF, Alabama, they lined him up all over the place last season. He was primarily in the backfield, but he played 42 snaps in the slot and 45 out wide. So they split him up fairly evenly, as a pass catcher. But his ability as a pass catcher is what allowed him to be a threat in every snap. And the linebackers in man coverage will have a very difficult time covering this slippery guy here. He's 5'9", like 198 pounds, I believe. Let's go back and take a look. Yeah, he's 5'9", 198 pounds. But for that reason, I feel like one of his weaknesses is going to be blocking. He's a smaller back, a lot like DeAndre Swift. He's also the replacement for DeAndre Swift, albeit we didn't know that ahead of the draft, but we all kind of had the inkling that DeAndre was going to be out of Detroit at any moment's notice. The guy just doesn't stay healthy. Coming into his last season, there was a definite need to upgrade that running back room. They did that with Montgomery, and now they got Montgomery's duo with Gibbs. So no surprise there. But being a little bit smaller, this guy, he like disappears, reappears. I've watched plenty of tape where you see him disappear inside the offensive line, and then he just squirts out and he runs for 20, 30 yards the other direction. It's incredible to watch. Amazing feat on this guy. His vision and awareness is exactly what we're speaking to here. He just has the sight lines. I mean, he sees the hole, he hits the hole, and some of his best traits, are his awareness. His big runs come as a result of identifying, the cutback lane or, when he's racing past linebackers and safeties who are definitely out of position by the time he gets to them. With his speed, even the smallest gap can turn into a big gain for Gibbs. So his eyes are a big reason why. And he has a knack for finding the open lanes. Another big point here is his acceleration. This guy has very, very good short burst area quickness. Or quick burst area quickness, however you want to refer to it. But in a very small area, the guy has immediate burst and he can get in and out in a hurry. So when he's getting bottled up, he can squirt left, right, back, wherever he's got to go, and he finds a new way to get free. Once he gets to full speed, which is almost instantly, the guy is hard to catch. So I can't wait to see this offense with Gibbs. The one thing that I said earlier is, at the 5'9", 198 pounds, his physicality is one thing that I'm worried about. He's not afraid of getting hit. He's not afraid of lowering the shoulder and making a hit. But the one thing we saw from DeAndre Swift is he kind of just slid out of bounds all the time and didn't fight for those extra yards. That's the difference between Gibbs and Swift. Gibbs is willing to take the extra yards by giving up a little bit of his body, but he's also doing it in a safe manner where he's not, putting himself out there for injury too often. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be an exciting season with Gibbs behind the line. A quote from the Lions running backs coach was, this was probably what was most impressive about him is that he is a guy that can carry the football in multiple schemes and run the ball very well. His burst, it shows up on tape, of course, but you see some of the things he does. That's just natural. That happens. He's very, very consistent. If you look at the tape from Georgia Tech moving on to Alabama, one thing that you see is he's very tight in his tracks. Good quote, which means that he was always where he's supposed to be. That's really, really important as we look at continuing to look at the process. I think he'll continue to grow. Even his speed grew as you look at his miles per hour on the field, which I think is an excellent quote, here by Scotty Montgomery, which I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do with this offensive backfield here. So we'll move on to the second pick for the Detroit Lions, selected at pick 18 in the first round. I had Jack Campbell selected somewhere between 34 and 48, and I think just about everybody else did too. But the reason why the Lions took him here was the highest guy in the draft board, just like Jahmyr Gibbs. He was the highest rated player on the draft board at that time. So Holmes drafts more for BPA as opposed to need. And that's the difference as to why this draft might be upside down when you look at a player's value, where they were selected, where they were rated. But then again, the pundits and everybody else doing this type of job, we don't know anything when it's compared to these NFL GMs. They know it all. They have all the information. So you could flip this first 5 picks on its head, and if you would have selected those players in reverse order, it would have made more sense. But that's not the way Holmes operates, and he still got his guys. It doesn't matter where he took them; he still got them. So, a little bit about Jack Campbell here is he always seems to be around the ball. All the tape that I've watched from him, whether he's in the middle of the field or on the outside, he is always around the ball, always disruptive, getting his hands in, getting a hit in, and getting in on the play. And that's what we like to see from a linebacker, somebody that's around the ball. And the other thing is he plays with a very deceptive quickness. His lateral ability to move left and right down the line is evident, and he's able to do it with a very shifty, elusive speed to him. He had a very stellar performance at the NFL Combine. I know it's the Pajama Olympics per Dan Campbell, and we kind of believe the same thing too. It's more or less to see how the guys move, right? You're trying to get the interviews and see just who they are as a person. But you're able to see some things at the Combine too, being able to watch the hips and being able to watch the arms and how everything kind of works together. Sometimes it's difficult to see that during the play. But being in a controlled environment, it's a little bit easier to see. The biggest comment on Jack Campbell that we have is this guy posted a RAS score of 9.98 out of 10. It doesn't get much more perfect than this. His size, is just as important of an aspect to his game as his strength and his length, and he has it all. Being able to disrupt the passing lanes and create deflections and turnovers. This is what Jack Campbell does. Captain Jackman in his college career totaled 299 tackles to go along with 12 and a half tackles for loss. 3 sacks, 5 interceptions, showed the ability to make plays. 15 passes defended and 5 interceptions for his career. So he set his career high of 8 passes defended in 2021. What does it mean? He gets his hands on the ball. He's around the ball. He's making plays. He's going to come into the Lions as an off-ball linebacker. Anzalone is probably going to move to the outside. Probably not all the time. I mean, Campbell still has to come in and play and learn the defense, and Anzalone's still going to be the quarterback of the defense this season. I can't see that changing hands. Otherwise, there would have been no reason for the Lions to bring Anzalone back on a 3-year, $18 million contract. So this role for Campbell, it's going to be interesting in the first season, but definitely seeing him in the middle of the field, clogging up the run lanes where we desperately need, his production. Brad Holmes' press conference, quote, went a little something like this. First time looking at Jack, I kind of thought, okay, I've seen these kinds of linebackers before. He's big and he's a plugger, but actually, no, he's not. And what he meant by that was, no, he wasn't. He hasn't seen these types of linebackers before. He thought he did. He thought that everything that he was seeing was very similar to a lot of the other linebackers he's drafted or watched tape on. So the more he looked at him, quote from Brad Holmes, the more you look at him, the more athletic his traits came out and became very, very visible. And then you start looking at the athlete, the numbers he produced in terms of top 5 athletic categories among all the linebackers in this year's draft. And for a 6'4", 250-pound linebacker, that was pretty impressive. We're not even getting into the 2-time captain. We're not even getting into the extremely instinctive, extremely smart, extremely physical, very versatile. He can do it in the run game, and he can do it in the pass game. The one thing I want to pull out of this is Brad Holmes loves versatility. As much as he loves BPA in the draft, he's looking for players that are versatile. And the reason for that is, for instance, CJ Gardner-Johnson. The Lions knew they had to upgrade the defensive backfield. And what a better way to do it than with two-way players. And we'll get to another two-way player here in just a few moments, but that's exactly what Campbell's looking for. Whether it's an offensive guard that can slide over to center, or if it's an offensive tackle that can slide over to guard, or vice versa. Whether it is a tight end that can swing out wide and play a wide receiver role. That's what Brad Holmes is looking for, and it goes back to the whole roster roulette thing of having a Swiss Army knife, if you will, of players that can step in at a moment's notice when you suffer an injury. And it's great to see that Holmes is taking that approach in building this offense and defense in a manner that gives us options throughout the season, especially later in the season, when it's undoubtedly going to happen that you suffer some injuries, and throughout the season injuries are going to happen. But who can you pluck off your roster and slide right into that role? It doesn't always happen. It's not always available. And then you have to go and find somebody that doesn't know your system, and you bring them off the streets, or you find them on another team. And sometimes they just don't fit well, during that limited role for the rest of the season. So having, the Swiss Army knife type players on the team, it's a good thing for the Detroit Lions to have. Tim Twentyman had a nice take on Jack Campbell. He said that Jack Campbell is definitely a Dan Campbell type of player. He possesses terrific size at 6'5", 249 pounds, and is a tackle-to-tackle run stuffer. With good lateral quickness, his 6.73 cone and 4.24 short shuttle were number one among linebackers at the combine. And a ton of production. The Lions ranked 29th against the run and 30th in yards per carry allowed. Campbell should help in that department. I sure hope so, because it was a pathetic performance last season by this Lions defense, pretty much the entire season with stopping the run. So moving on here to our third pick in the NFL draft, round 2, number 34 overall, a guy that I am so happy the Lions did not take in the first round, or any tight end in the first round, is Sam Laporta, Iowa Hawkeyes, tight end university, coming in at 6'3 1/4 inches, 249 pounds. He runs a 4.59 40, so he's not blazingly fast, but for that type of body size, he's moving. And when you compare him and a guy like Jack Campbell, who runs a 4.65, and they're almost identical in size, they're only about an inch and a half apart, but 249 pounds running a 4.65. Sam Laporta, 6'3 1/4, running a 4.59. So I think that speaks volumes more to Jack Campbell and how he's going to be able to hang with the tight ends this season. Because Sam Laporta is one of the quicker tight ends out there. A couple notables about Sam Laporta is easily shakes defenders. He's got great yards after catch ability. He's a fluid route runner. He sinks his hips and drops his weight at ease when changing direction. He's also, needs to get a little bit stronger and more consistent with his hands placement, but he's also a capable and willing blocker. He's just not the best blocking tight end out there. He's a pass catcher. And that's what the Lions brought him in for, was to go help this offense produce in the passing game. Not so much for the blocking side. So during the 2022 season at Iowa, Laporta saw his increase in production, which was phenomenal. Per PFF, Laporta had 317 yards after catch. And obviously that speaks volumes to his athletic ability. Catching the ball, being able to plant and move and get around a defender is not easy to do with that type of body size. And he's able to do it. And he does it consistently. And being, the type of receiver that he is as a tight end, and being able to turn on a dime, is going to lend to more yards after the catch like he saw last season. It's a very rare quality. There's only one other tight end that I know of in the league currently that does that, and he plays for the Chiefs, and he does it at a high level too, Travis Kelce. The Lions are definitely going to get a player that can do a variety of things. Again, speaking back to that Swiss Army knife type player, he can play in the slot, he can play in line, he can play out wide. During his career at Iowa, he had 513 snaps in line, 304 snaps out on the slot. And it would really be a surprise, probably to everybody, if Laporta walks into Detroit and doesn't earn a starting position. I expect him to be on the field early. Wright did a lot of great things last season. There's nothing wrong with what Wright was able to produce. But seeing that, what he can't do versus what Laporta can do is the intriguing thing here. Let's see. Let's get into the next pick, and this is going to be my last pick for tonight. It's the quick recap of the Lions' first few picks here. So Jahmyr Gibbs, we rolled into Jack Campbell, and then Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, and then we'll roll into Hendon Hooker. But Brian Branch, thank you, Green Bay Packers. How dumb can you be? You needed a safety desperately. You have one of the most vicious wide receiving cores in the Detroit Lions entering the 2023 season, and you just left it wide open for us. So at pick 48, the Lions trade up with the Packers to take pick 45. And why, I don't know. Why would they let Branch walk? I mean, did they really think that he was going to slip much further? I don't get it. And all the Lions gave up was a pick 159. Was that a late fifth round pick? Huge steal for the Lions here. So after doing some review of Branch's film, I was really impressed, to say the least, but very reliable tackling. He's got strong football instincts, and his natural ability to change directions at a moment's notice is incredible. The guy's got eyes on the ball. He's definitely following the quarterback, but he doesn't get baited by the quarterback. Brian Branch has this uncanny ability to kind of see through what the quarterback's about to do and disrupt that play by engaging early and jumping the routes. He's definitely one of the best nickel prospects in this draft, and being able to play, in the nickel as well as back in free safety zone. Man, the Lions are really getting a phenomenal prospect here. And somebody that probably should have been taken, 20 picks earlier, to be honest with you. Only a 2% missed tackle rate. This guy loves to jump up and lower the hit. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens this season with Jalen Hurts. I mean, how does this help the Lions overall, right? So Jack Campbell, run stuffer. Brian Branch, I mean, the guy can do it all. But if you think that Jalen Hurts is now going to be able to run up the middle, that's over with. Jack Campbell and the rest of that linebacking core, they're going to shut it down. So if he wants to squirt outside, you're going to meet Brian Branch or Kirby Joseph or CJ Gardner-Johnson or Cam Sutton or Emmanuel Mosley or Tracy Walker. Good luck, guys, because you're not going to get far. And I think that was the whole strategy here with Brad Holmes, was how do we shut down the run from all angles? If we give our defensive line enough time to produce, then we're going to be able to get after the quarterback a little bit more. We're going to be able to shut down the run a little bit easier. And, overall, those two positions kind of play off of each other. The front, defensive line plays off of how well the defensive backs play, and vice versa. So Brad Holmes had this to say about Brian Branch. And he said it, in a manner that it was kind of expected, right? That he expects Brian to come in and play Aaron Glenn's defensive scheme the way that it's supposed to be played. So he's more of a nickel than a safety, Brad Holmes stated, but his nickel stuff is really good. He's one of the better tacklers that I saw in film this year from a defensive standpoint, especially for a DB. He just plays the game how we play it and like the style of how we want to play it. He's very instinctive. He's very physical. He's one of the better tacklers. He's very athletic. The guy can bend, change directions, and he's got good size. and he does have decent size. He's not the biggest defensive back, out there, but I want to say he's 5'11", just under 6 foot potentially, right around 198 pounds. But let me double check all that. 6 foot, 190. So yeah, I mean he's right at the prototypical size for a safety or for a corner. Personally, I don't like any corners or DBs under 6 foot. I know there's a few of them out there, and Devin Witherspoon was the exception to my rule. I think he comes in right around 5'11". So then we get to the Lions' fifth pick, and man, was I ecstatic. Hendon Hooker. It doesn't get any better than this, guys. I mean, how does Hendon Hooker slip all the way as far as he did? And in my opinion, I mean, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year in 2022 was just this short, because of an ACL, of winning a Heisman. I felt like if he would have finished the season last year, he probably would have locked it up. I mean, the guy has got 5 seasons of experience. Yeah, he comes in at 25 years old. Sure, he's got an ACL, but he doesn't have to start. He doesn't even need to play this season. And that's not going to give any pressure to Goff. So Goff is going to be able to do what he does. But in the event that we need him and he's healthy and he's ready to go, this is who you want leading your team as a backup to your starter. I've done, so many mock drafts this past season and watched so much tape. And Hendon Hooker to me was by far the best quarterback in this draft. Yeah, he played in a funny system at Tennessee. And that offensive system is not something that you would see in any type of an NFL offensive system. So he does have a lot to learn there. And that's going to be adjusting to an NFL pro style of system. And he'll get it. He may not have the best scores out of these, personality tests and reaction type tests that they give them these days. It's not the Wonderlic anymore. But not everybody's a great test taker. If you're a baller and you understand football, that's all that matters. And if you do it on the field, that's all that matters to this team, right? It's what you produce on the field that's going to speak volumes to who you are, not some piece of paper with a test score on it. But they're getting a very interesting, prospect here in Hendon Hooker. I like his size. I like his intangibles. He's got a deadly accurate arm. He can throw the deep ball with ease. He can move with his legs. Not right now, but he can. When he needs to run, he can run. But he's pocket passer first, and he'll run when he needs to. But he does offer a little glimmer of hope in the dual threat scheme that will, again, throw another wrench into the defensive plan, because now that's just one other element to the Lions offensive game that they have to prepare for. And with somebody like Hendon, I don't think that many defenses are really going to prepare for it a whole lot. They're going to expect him to kind of just hang out in the pocket and do his thing. And he will do it very well. So Hendon Hooker, if you go back and look at rockdownpodcastnetwork.com and look at the blog site, I wrote a few articles, one about Brad Holmes, kind of leading the horse to water type deal, kind of leaving your mouth dry because he says a lot of things and you eat it up and you listen to it. But at the end of the day, he kind of really didn't say anything. And he had us all over the place since free agency, where we thought that he was going to address the position in free agency, and he didn't. Brought back Sudfeld, just shortly after free agency started and a few weeks before the draft. And I kind of called him out on it with, you're going to draft somebody. And this is where and who I think you're going to draft. And I had Hendon Hooker going 81 to the Lions, but since the Lions did, some draft day trades, that 81 kind of turned into 68, if you will. But it's a phenomenal pickup. The Lions stole Hendon Hooker. In my opinion, he's going to end up being one of the best quarterbacks in this draft. The unfortunate side to that is he's not going to get, a lot of playing time for at least a year or two. And we might not ever see how great he could have been. if Goff keeps playing well. So kudos to the Lions and what they did this season. To all the pundits out there and all the other individuals that are saying that the Lions had a terrible draft, you're 100% wrong. The Lions are going to shock you this season. They're going to bounce back just like they did last season, except this time they're going to start that way. And they've got the right players that have now fit the needs. Holmes drafted best player available to fit those needs, and he's going to put these players in. He'll find room for them. It doesn't matter how deep they are at a certain position. He's going to find a way to get these guys on the field. And that's the thing that I love about this Lions team is they're doing all the right things. They're making all the right moves. Even in a critical situation with the Jameson Williams deal, they found a way to pivot and move forward. And that's what this team's all about. They're going to have their mistakes. They'll have their days. They'll have their Sundays that don't go so well. But they're going to pivot and they're going to move forward and they're going to fix it. I kind of felt like coming into this season that the Lions were supposed to be about another year away. And right now, I kind of feel like they're maybe half a season away. But when you put it all together, and once we get through training camp, it's really going to tell us a whole lot about where this team is. I think the Lions are ready to finally take a run and capture this NFC North and put their legacy flag down and keep taking the NFC North until somebody wants to try to unseat us. But we've got to win it once because we haven't won anything yet, and it's been a long time since the Lions have been in a playoff game. But if I can tell you anything, after watching this draft and just how well the Lions did, there's no reason why these Lions can't pull off 11 wins this season, win the NFC North, have a home playoff game, and finally get a victory in Motown that is going to mean something and get into a divisional game. So that's my early predictions because of this draft. I'm elated and excited about this draft. We got some phenomenal players. I can't wait to go meet them all this summer. So stay with us next week. We get into Lions legends. We're going to be talking about Barry Sanders, Billy Sims, Calvin Johnson, Lem Barney, and a whole host of other Charlie Sanders, whole host of other Lions legends that used to win games, used to win championships, were some of the most feared players in the NFL. Chris Spielman is one of them. So we're going to get back to this next week, Thursday. We're going to start with Lions legends, but please do us all a favor. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to all of our socials. You can visit the link tree that'll be in the description. You can visit us on Facebook at Rocked On Detroit Lions or at Rocked On Podcast Network. Get Rocked on Twitter and Rocked On Podcast Network on YouTube and rockedonpodcastnetwork.com. Go check out the blogs. We'll see y'all next week on Off the Cuff. Hope you all have a great evening, and we'll check you out later.